Cache Valley Media Group's countdown of the top 25 Aggie football players for the year 2023, down to the last two. And at number 2, boy, can he fire knife dance, but he also plays great football. He's defensive lineman Hale Motu'apuaka. Hale is 6'1", 280 pounds, a senior from Honolulu, Hawaii, an Aggie 4-year letterman. Number 2, Hale Motu'apuaka on the Utah State defensive front.
Yes, Hale Motu'apuaka, the senior, technically graduate defensive end. I don't know what he's in his final year of eligibility. His sixth season with the Aggies. His career with the Aggies began all the way back in 2018. Appeared in a couple of games, ended up redshirting. But basically, since then, he's been a regular in the defensive line rotation. He was, kind of a backup in 2019, but then started becoming a bit of a full-time starter in 2020, especially in the last 2 years, where he's pretty much started every game he's played. So I think he's got 46 total appearances with the Aggies, 28 starts, and if I'm not mistaken, he has the most snaps played among any Aggie on this team. So the most experienced player, both in terms of years, snaps played. I think you have only Stephen Constantly has more starts than him. So very experienced and also very good, as you'd expect of someone who's managed to start 28 times, in his career.
Yeah, at times he can be a one-man wrecking crew. I mean, last year he had 35 tackles, and he had 5 sacks, 8 tackles for loss. Was able to speed up the quarterback a number of times. In 2021, he had a couple of 2.5 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, and this is somebody who benefited last year from having some speed edge rushers by him, and we're learning about the guys that are going to be on either side of him, on the edges, but there's going to be a little bit more on his shoulders as those guys settle in and who those players will be. But Hale in the middle can be very disruptive. And you heard Al talk about this fire dance, and I think that always gets talked about with Hale. He's an international award-winning fire dance champion, and that does actually, in my mind, relate in a good way to what he does on the defensive line, because you have to be good with your hands and movement and knowing where your body is and every extension of your body. If you're throwing fire knives around everywhere, so you don't impale yourself. But it means he's nimble and he's quick at what he needs to do with his hands to get his body in the right position and get offensive linemen out of the way.
Yeah, I think it also speaks to work ethic. If you're able to work hard enough to be the best in the world at something, it doesn't necessarily mean you can be the best in the world at everything, but it means you got the work ethic to, put your mind to something, get better, and improve. And Hale's been doing that in football. Actually, I believe he mentioned he was interviewing Al Lewis. I think Hale ended up taking second or third or whatnot in the competitions this year in fire knife because he's been focusing on football. He hasn't had as much time to focus on the cool awesomeness that is fire knife dancing. Yes. So he's been focused on football, making himself better. He put on some more weight this season. He's going to be harder to move around inside. He's going to be better at getting into the backfield. Already a guy who 8 tackles for loss. It was his second straight season getting at least 8 tackles for loss. You mentioned the 5 sacks. That was a career high last year, as were the 35 tackles. So he's a guy that, despite playing defensive tackle, which is a stat that can be somewhat notorious for not putting up tons of stats, he's kind of still been able to do that a little bit, where he was second on the team in sacks last year, and I think he was 3rd or 4th in tackles for loss. So he's a guy that's making an impact there at defensive tackle, and he's going to be doing that again, and a lot of people are recognizing that. He was first team on Phil Steele's, All Mountain West team. He was second team on Athlon, and I forgot to check all the other 10 different, websites that I've looked for All Mountain West teams. But he's generally recognized as, one of the best players in this team and arguably the best player on defense for the Aggies.
Yeah, and recognized among peers throughout the Mountain West as a very high-impact player for what he does on that defensive front. So if you've got a defensive lineman that is really disruptive, man, that makes life a lot easier for your linebackers because now you've created gaps that they can shoot through or opposing offenses have to focus on what you're doing and you're taking attention away from other things that they need to do. So Hale can do that. And been really fun watching him grow and develop as somebody who got time on the defensive line. We didn't see a lot of big impact plays from him earlier on, but every year he's gotten better and better and more impactful. And Aggies really need him to be impactful this year because of some of the youth and inexperience around him.
Yeah, probably one of the most underrated luxuries a team can have is a great interior defensive tackle. Because you always talk about you want an elite, quarterback, and then on defense, if you ask, someone what's the elite position you want, they'll say, pass rusher, something like that, or maybe a great linebacker. But people don't always appreciate just how wonderful it is to have a consistent presence in a defensive tackle. And the Aggies have that. At the very least, we know they've got a quality starting defensive tackle. And that's something that they'll appreciate throughout the season.
6'1", 290 pounds. He wears number 8 on his jersey. It wasn't always that number. It used to be 92 that he used to wear, but he wears number 8, and he's number 2 on our list of top 25 Aggies for 2023.